Archangel Michael says, your financial breakthrough is being prepared. But first, this. Before the breakthrough. Before the increase. Before anything shifts externally. Something needs to shift inside you first. Stay here. This matters more than you realize right now. You have been waiting. Hoping. Watching the numbers. Wondering when things will finally change. That waiting is real. That exhaustion is real. Nobody needs to tell you how heavy it has felt. But here is something worth hearing clearly today. Breakthrough rarely arrives before readiness. Not because you are being punished. Not because you have failed. Simply because certain things need to be true first, inside you, before external increase can actually be received and sustained. This message is about that preparation. Think about what actually happens when money arrives before someone is ready for it. It slips away. Fast. Almost as quickly as it came. You have probably seen this happen to someone you know. Sudden money. Sudden gone. Not because the money was cursed. Because the internal capacity to hold it was not yet built. Archangel Michael is not asking you to wait forever. He is asking you to prepare now, so that when the breakthrough actually arrives, it stays. Here is the first thing that needs to shift. Your relationship with fear around money. Be honest with yourself for a moment. How often does fear drive your financial decisions? Fear of not having enough. Fear of checking your account. Fear of opening that one bill you have been avoiding. That fear has been running things for a while now. Quietly. Constantly. Fear does not build wealth. Fear builds avoidance. And avoidance keeps you exactly where you already are. This does not mean pretending everything is fine when it is not. It means finally looking honestly at what is actually there. Numbers do not lie. Feelings sometimes do. Consider, too, where this particular fear first began. Was there a specific moment growing up when money felt frightening, unstable, or scarce? Was there a specific loss or hardship that taught you, early, that financial security could disappear without warning? Understanding the origin does not automatically dissolve the fear. But it can help you recognize when that old fear is speaking, rather than your current, actual circumstances. Here is something worth trying today. Actually open your accounts. Actually look at the real numbers. Not the version you have built in your head out of anxiety. The actual, current truth. This is uncomfortable. Do it anyway. Clarity is where breakthrough begins. Here is the second thing that needs to shift. The story you have been telling yourself about who gets to be financially secure. Somewhere, at some point, you absorbed a belief. Maybe it came from watching someone struggle. Maybe it came from words spoken carelessly by someone who loved you but did not know better. Maybe it simply developed slowly, quietly, without any single dramatic moment you can even point back to. Whatever the source, that belief has been shaping your choices without you fully realizing it. Ask yourself honestly. What do you actually believe about people who have money? Are they lucky? Are they somehow different from you? Are they, deep down, less trustworthy, less humble, less good? If any part of you holds a belief like that, even quietly, even subtly, it is working against you right now. You cannot fully receive something your own beliefs are quietly rejecting. This is worth sitting with. Really sitting with. Consider, too, whether you have ever felt genuinely uncomfortable witnessing someone else's financial success, a flicker of resentment or suspicion rather than simple, uncomplicated happiness for them. That reaction, if present, often reveals exactly the kind of belief this message is describing, operating quietly beneath conscious awareness until finally brought into the light through honest reflection like this. Here is the third thing that needs to shift. Your tolerance for staying stuck. Think about how long you have accepted certain patterns. The same excuses. The same cycle of paycheck to paycheck. The same avoidance of a conversation about money that desperately needs to happen. Comfort with staying stuck is sneaky. It does not feel like comfort. It feels like exhaustion, like helplessness, like this is just how things are. But somewhere inside, a level of acceptance has developed. And acceptance of a stuck place makes it very difficult to actually move beyond it. Archangel Michael is asking you today to stop accepting this as simply how things are. Here is something to consider honestly. What specific pattern have you been tolerating longer than you should have? Name it. Right now, even just in your own mind. That naming matters. You cannot change what you refuse to name clearly. Think about how this particular pattern first began, and how it slowly became simply the accepted background of your daily life. Notice how quickly something genuinely difficult can start feeling normal, simply through repetition, even when it was never actually acceptable in the first place. Here is the fourth thing that needs to shift. Your willingness to actually take practical steps, rather than only hoping and praying for change without matching that hope with real action. Faith without corresponding action tends to remain exactly that. Faith. Beautiful, but ungrounded. Genuine breakthrough usually requires both together. Genuine belief that things can change, paired with real, concrete steps taken consistently in that direction. What specific step have you been avoiding? A conversation about debt. A decision to finally track your spending. A long overdue application for something better. A hard conversation with someone about money owed, or money mismanaged, or money hidden. Name that step. Consider taking it this week. Think about what has specifically kept you from taking that step already. Fear of the outcome. Uncertainty about how to begin. Simple avoidance because thinking about it feels exhausting. Whatever the reason, notice it honestly, without judgment, simply as useful information about what genuinely needs to shift in order for that particular step to finally become possible. Here is the fifth thing that needs to shift. Your capacity to receive, not just to work hard. Many people have built incredible capacity for effort. Working long hours. Sacrificing rest. Pushing through exhaustion because that is simply what needs to be done. Far fewer people have built equal capacity to actually receive good things once they arrive. To accept help. To accept a raise without immediately feeling guilty. To accept generosity without immediately trying to repay it before it has even settled. If receiving feels uncomfortable to you, notice that. It matters. Breakthrough is coming. But if receiving feels foreign to you, that breakthrough will feel strange, awkward, almost unwelcome, rather than the relief it is actually meant to be. Practice receiving small things now. A compliment. A small kindness. Simply say thank you, without deflecting, without minimizing, without immediately trying to even the score. This builds the exact muscle you will need when something larger eventually arrives. Think about the last time someone offered you help or kindness, and notice honestly how you responded. Did you accept it fully, or did you immediately deflect, minimize, or rush to repay it before it had even been fully received? This small pattern, repeated across countless small moments, reveals a great deal about your actual, practiced capacity for receiving, distinct from your capacity for giving or working hard. Here is the sixth thing that needs to shift. Comparison. Stop measuring your financial journey against someone else's highlight reel. You do not know their debt. You do not know their stress. You only know the curated version they choose to show. Comparison steals peace. And peace is part of what actually needs to be present for breakthrough to land well, rather than simply becoming another source of anxiety once it finally arrives. Release the comparison. Focus on your own specific numbers, your own specific progress, your own specific next step. Think about how much energy comparison has quietly consumed, energy that could have been directed instead toward your own actual, specific progress. Notice this honestly, without judgment, simply as useful awareness moving forward. Here is the seventh thing that needs to shift. Isolation around this topic. Money remains one of the most silent struggles people carry. Everyone assumes everyone else has it figured out. Nobody talks honestly. Meanwhile, most people are quietly struggling in their own particular way, behind closed doors, behind carefully maintained appearances. Consider breaking that silence, even slightly. Talk to one trusted person honestly about where you actually stand. Not for pity. For genuine support and accountability. You were never meant to carry this entirely alone. Think about who specifically might be safe to have this kind of honest conversation with. Someone who would listen without judgment. Someone who might even share their own honest struggles in return, breaking the isolation on both sides simultaneously. Here is the eighth thing that needs to shift. Your definition of enough. Many people chase a moving target, believing that once they reach a certain number, peace will finally arrive. Then they reach it, and the target quietly moves further away, and peace remains just as distant as before. Peace was never actually located at that specific number. It has to be cultivated now, alongside continued effort toward growth, rather than postponed indefinitely until some future financial milestone finally arrives. Consider what enough would genuinely look like for you, specifically, concretely, rather than as some vague, ever-shifting idea. Try writing down an actual number, or an actual description of what enough genuinely means to you personally. Not what enough means to society, or to someone else you admire, or to the version of yourself constantly comparing against others. Simply what enough means to you, honestly, right now. Here is something worth understanding about why Archangel Michael is speaking so directly today, rather than simply offering vague comfort without any accompanying challenge. Genuine breakthrough requires genuine preparation. Comfort alone rarely produces change. Sometimes love looks like direct, honest challenge rather than gentle, comfortable reassurance. This message is choosing directness because you deserve more than temporary comfort. You deserve lasting change. Think about the difference between a message that simply makes you feel good for a few minutes, and a message that actually shifts something real within you. The second kind is rarer, and often less immediately comfortable, but it is the kind that actually produces lasting results over time. Here is something worth sitting with regarding timing. You may be wondering exactly when this breakthrough will arrive. This message cannot give you an exact date. What it can tell you is this: the preparation you do now directly shapes how fully you will be able to receive and sustain whatever eventually arrives. Rushing the preparation does not speed up the breakthrough. It simply means the breakthrough, when it comes, may not last as long as it could have, had proper preparation actually taken place first. Patience with this preparation is not wasted time. It is the actual foundation being built. Think about a specific example of something worth building slowly rather than rushing, something you already understand instinctively. A strong building requires a properly cured foundation before construction continues. Rushing that particular step, no matter how eager the builder feels to see visible progress, risks the entire structure later. Your financial foundation deserves this same respect for proper timing. Here is something worth understanding about fear specifically, since fear likely still lingers even after everything already discussed throughout this message. Fear that none of this will actually work. Fear that you have tried before and failed. Fear that maybe financial ease is simply not meant for you specifically. That fear is understandable, given everything you have already been through. It is also not the final truth of your situation. Consider what evidence actually supports that fear, compared to evidence that might genuinely contradict it. Have you actually never made any progress at all, or have there been small wins along the way that fear has conveniently minimized or forgotten? Most people, examining this honestly, find more evidence of resilience and capability than their fear typically gives them credit for. Think of one specific instance, even small, where you overcame a financial obstacle you once believed impossible. Perhaps paying off a specific debt, however small. Perhaps surviving a season of unemployment. Perhaps simply learning to budget when you once had no idea how to begin. That evidence exists. Find it, and let it speak louder than the fear currently trying to convince you otherwise. Here is something practical worth doing today, right now, before this message even ends. Write down one specific financial truth you have been avoiding. Just one. Do not solve it yet. Simply name it honestly. That single act of honesty is itself preparation. It is itself part of what Archangel Michael is asking of you today. Consider, too, keeping that written truth somewhere you will actually see it again tomorrow, and the day after. Not to dwell on it anxiously, but simply to keep it present enough that it does not quietly slip back into the comfortable avoidance it has been living in until now. Here is something worth understanding about small consistent actions, since breakthrough rarely arrives through one single, dramatic moment. It usually arrives through an accumulation of small, consistent choices, repeated over time, building towards something that eventually becomes undeniable. What is one small action you could take this week? Setting aside even a small amount into savings. Finally making that phone call to negotiate a bill. Finally applying for that position you have been telling yourself you are not ready for. Small. Consistent. Real. Think about how small, seemingly insignificant actions have already produced significant results elsewhere in your life, whether in relationships, health, or skills you have developed over time. Financial change tends to follow this same pattern, even though it can feel less immediately visible than other kinds of change. Here is something worth understanding about support during this particular season. You do not need to figure everything out alone. Consider whether financial counseling, even free community resources, might genuinely help you build the practical skills this particular preparation season requires. Seeking help is not weakness. It is wisdom in action. Think about other areas of life where seeking help felt completely natural: a doctor for health concerns, a mechanic for a car problem, a teacher for learning a new skill. Financial guidance deserves this same natural, unashamed acceptance, rather than the quiet shame that often surrounds asking for help, specifically with money. Here is something worth understanding about grace throughout this entire process. You will not do this perfectly. You will slip back into old patterns sometimes. You will feel discouraged on certain days. That does not undo the genuine progress you are making. Extend yourself patience. Genuine change rarely happens in a straight, uninterrupted line. Think about how you would respond to a close friend going through this exact same process, making the exact same small mistakes along the way. You would likely offer them patience, encouragement, and grace without hesitation. Offer yourself that same quality of compassion, rather than the harsher standard you might otherwise apply only to yourself. Here is something worth naming honestly about shame, since shame often quietly accompanies financial struggle, whether or not it gets spoken aloud. If shame has been present in your own particular relationship with money, notice it. Then release it, as best you genuinely can. Shame does not build wealth. It simply adds unnecessary weight on top of an already difficult situation. You are not your financial situation. You are someone in the process of building something better, one honest, deliberate choice at a time. Consider where this particular shame originally came from, whether from a specific comment someone once made, from cultural messaging equating financial struggle with personal failure, or simply from comparing yourself unfairly against people whose full circumstances you never actually knew. Naming its origin can help loosen its grip, even slightly, even today. Here is something worth understanding about gratitude throughout this preparation season: not forced positivity that denies genuine struggle, but honest gratitude for whatever currently exists, held alongside continued effort toward growth. What do you currently have that deserves genuine appreciation, even amid ongoing financial difficulty? Name it. Let yourself feel it, even briefly, before continuing forward. Consider how gratitude and continued ambition can genuinely coexist, rather than existing as opposites. You can appreciate your current circumstances honestly while still actively working towards something better, and doing so does not diminish the gratitude in any way. Here is something worth understanding about the specific role that patience plays alongside urgency throughout this entire message. Yes, this preparation matters now. Yes, delay carries real cost. But patience and urgency are not actually opposites here. You can move with genuine urgency today, taking real steps, while also extending genuine patience toward the timeline the fuller process actually requires. Rushing the internal work rarely produces lasting results. Building a house quickly, without a proper foundation, still eventually collapses. The same principle applies here. Move with urgency. Build with patience. Here is something worth naming about the specific relationship between money and identity, since many people, without fully realizing it, have tied their sense of self-worth directly to their financial situation. When money is tight, worth feels tight too. When money flows more easily, worth suddenly feels more secure. This connection, left unexamined, quietly distorts everything. It makes financial struggle feel like personal failure rather than simply circumstance. It makes financial success feel like proof of worth rather than simply a practical outcome of effort, timing, and opportunity. Separate these two things, as much as you genuinely can. Your worth was never determined by your bank balance. It was never up for negotiation based on how much money currently sits in your account. This separation itself is part of the preparation Archangel Michael is describing today. Here is something worth understanding about specific financial habits that quietly work against long-term breakthrough, even when they feel harmless in any single moment. Impulse spending used to soothe difficult emotions. Avoiding financial planning because looking closely feels too overwhelming. Saying yes to spending you cannot genuinely afford, simply to avoid an uncomfortable conversation or an uncomfortable feeling of missing out. None of these habits make you a bad person. They simply reveal areas still needing honest attention. Notice which ones apply to you specifically, without harsh self-judgment, simply as useful, practical information. Here is something worth considering about the specific people you surround yourself with regarding money. Do the people closest to you talk about finances with anxiety and scarcity, or with calm, practical clarity? Environment shapes belief more than most people realize. If your closest circle consistently reinforces scarcity thinking, that atmosphere quietly works against everything else this message has been encouraging today. This does not mean abandoning people you love. It simply means becoming aware of this particular influence, and perhaps seeking out at least one or two additional voices, whether through books, mentors, or supportive communities, that model a calmer, more capable relationship with money than what currently surrounds you day to day. Here is something worth understanding about specific systems that reduce reliance on willpower alone, since willpower, however strong today, fluctuates naturally over time. Automatic transfers into savings. Automatic bill payments that prevent late fees. Simple, written budgets that remove daily guesswork. These small systems do more heavy lifting than most people initially expect. They turn good intentions into consistent action, without requiring constant, exhausting self-discipline every single day. Consider what one small system you could set up this week, something that would continue supporting your financial preparation even on days when motivation naturally runs low. Here is something worth understanding about celebrating progress along the way, rather than waiting until the entire journey is complete before allowing yourself any genuine satisfaction. A debt slightly reduced. A month where spending stayed within a planned budget. A difficult financial conversation finally had rather than continuing to be avoided. These moments deserve genuine acknowledgement. Pause. Notice them. Let yourself feel real, if modest, pride in each one. This acknowledgement itself becomes part of what sustains you through the longer, sometimes slower stretches of this particular process. Here is a final significant consideration before this message moves toward its close. Your financial breakthrough is being prepared. Genuinely. But the preparation involves you, not simply passive waiting on your part. It involves the internal shifts this message has been describing throughout its content, alongside real, concrete action taken consistently over time. This is not a small thing being asked of you. It is also entirely within your reach. Consider how each specific shift already discussed, fear, belief, tolerance for stuck patterns, action, receiving, comparison, isolation, and enough, connects to every other shift, forming a single, interconnected foundation rather than 8 entirely separate tasks. Progress in one area often naturally supports progress in the others, meaning you do not need to master everything perfectly and simultaneously before genuine movement can begin. Before this message reaches its true close, take one final, quiet moment for yourself. Consider which of these particular shifts felt most relevant to your own specific situation. Consider one small, honest step you might take today, connected directly to whatever felt most significant throughout this reflection. This does not need to feel dramatic. It simply needs to feel real. Trust that this message reached you today for a genuine reason, connecting specifically to something real within your own particular financial journey, rather than arriving randomly or without genuine relevance to your particular circumstances. Consider, too, what it might mean to continue this particular preparation beyond today, returning periodically to examine your own particular relationship with fear, belief, comfort, receiving, comparison, isolation, and enough, since these particular areas rarely resolve completely within a single reflection alone. Reflect, as well, on how you will handle moments of doubt that are likely to arise as you continue this particular preparation, moments when old patterns attempt to reassert themselves, insisting that nothing will actually change regardless of how much genuine effort you bring toward this process. When those moments arise, return to this message. Return to the specific truths that felt most significant during this particular reading. Let them reinforce your continued commitment, even as their initial emotional intensity naturally softens somewhat with the passage of time. Consider what specific record you might keep as you continue this particular journey, brief notes tracking small wins, small shifts, small moments of progress that might otherwise be easy to overlook or forget amid the ordinary busyness of daily life. Think about what genuine progress will actually look like over the coming months, recognizing that lasting financial transformation rarely happens instantly, regardless of how genuinely committed you feel to this process today. Progress more often looks like continued, gradual movement, small shifts accumulating steadily over time. Consider, finally, what it would mean to trust this entire process, even without complete certainty about exactly when or how your particular breakthrough will fully arrive. Trust here does not mean passive waiting without any genuine effort. It means continued, engaged participation in your own preparation, while also releasing the exhausting need for complete certainty about precise timing. There is one more layer worth adding before this message truly comes to its close, something that ties everything shared today into a single thread you can actually carry forward through the coming weeks. Think about the specific version of your financial life that exists 1 year from today, having genuinely continued this preparation consistently rather than allowing this message to fade into a single moment of temporary motivation. Picture that version clearly. Notice the specific numbers that might look different. Notice the specific anxiety that might have quieted. Notice the specific confidence that might have grown, simply through consistent, honest engagement over time. That version of your financial life is not fantasy. It is the natural result of exactly the kind of small, honest choices this message has been describing throughout its content, repeated consistently, starting from wherever you actually stand today. Here is something worth understanding about the specific danger of all or nothing thinking throughout this particular process. Many people, once they finally commit to genuine financial change, expect perfection immediately. One slip, one impulsive purchase, one missed savings deposit, and the entire effort suddenly feels ruined, prompting a complete return to old patterns entirely. This all-or-nothing thinking sabotages more genuine progress than actual financial mistakes ever do. A single setback is simply a single setback. It does not erase everything already built. Return to the plan the very next day, without dramatic self-punishment, and continue moving forward. Here is something worth understanding about the specific role of specific, written goals throughout this process, since vague intentions rarely produce concrete results. Wanting to be better with money remains abstract and difficult to measure. Saving a specific amount by a specific date, paying off a specific debt within a specific time frame, these concrete targets give your preparation actual direction and a genuine way to measure real progress. Consider writing down one specific, concrete financial goal today, however modest it currently feels. Let it become something you can actually track, rather than a vague aspiration that remains permanently undefined. Here is something worth understanding about the specific emotional weight that certain financial conversations carry, particularly conversations involving family members, partners, or close friends where money and relationship intertwine in complicated ways. These conversations are rarely simple. They deserve genuine preparation, genuine patience, and genuine compassion, both for yourself and for whoever else is involved. If a specific difficult financial conversation has been weighing on you throughout this reflection, consider what small, manageable first step toward that conversation might look like, rather than continuing to avoid it entirely simply because the full conversation feels overwhelming to imagine all at once. Here is something worth understanding about the specific role that professional guidance can play at different stages of this journey, since different seasons of financial preparation often benefit from different kinds of support. Early stages might benefit most from simple budgeting tools and basic financial education. Later stages, particularly involving investment, debt negotiation, or complex tax situations, might genuinely benefit from professional financial guidance specifically suited to those more complex circumstances. Consider what stage you currently find yourself in, and what specific kind of support, if any, might genuinely serve your continued progress at this particular point in your journey. Here is something worth understanding about the specific relationship between generosity and abundance, since many people, once they finally begin experiencing genuine financial improvement, discover that continued generosity, even in small ways, tends to reinforce rather than undermine their continued progress. This does not mean giving beyond your actual means. It simply means noticing that scarcity thinking and generosity rarely coexist easily, while a healthier, more secure relationship with money often naturally makes room for both continued growth and continued generosity toward others. Consider what small act of genuine generosity, appropriate to your actual current circumstances, might feel meaningful to you as you continue this particular journey, evidence to yourself that you are capable of both receiving and giving, rather than operating purely from fear and restriction alone. Here is something worth understanding about the specific timeline of trust, since trusting yourself again with money, particularly after previous financial mistakes or struggles, often takes time to rebuild. This trust develops the same way trust in any relationship develops, through consistent, demonstrated reliability over time, rather than through a single decision made once and never revisited. Extend yourself the same patience you would extend to rebuilding trust in any other important relationship. Each small, honest financial decision, kept consistently over time, gradually rebuilds this particular trust, even when progress feels slower than you might initially wish. This message reached you today for a reason. Trust that. Carry it with you. And when you are ready, not before, not because anyone told you to, but when you are genuinely ready, take your next step. Deep down, you already know what that step is. Thank you for receiving this message today. Be gentle with yourself as you continue this particular preparation, one honest, deliberate step at a time. Michael says, "Thank you for listening, and for choosing to prepare rather than simply wait. Your breakthrough is coming. This preparation is exactly what will help you receive and keep it." Warning received. Blessing coming. Stay ready.